Hey, it's Doug from Rise Up Gym Channel. And have you ever tried to go coast to coast in your church basketball league with a power dunk on the other side, only to pull your hip flexor? Well, I have some exercise for you that'll help get you back on the court in no time. Let's check it out. Oh! Like my previous videos on injuries and recovery for those injuries, always check with a doctor first before you start doing any of these exercises. Hip flexors in particular, there's a lot of muscles, a lot of big, strong muscles that connect upward and even downward into that junction. And it could be a number of things. It could be something minor like a pull. It could be something serious like a tear, or even like structural like a hip tear. So you want to make sure that when you're doing these things, one, you check with a doctor, two, you're doing them progressively, and three, you're not doing them by adding pain or swelling or tightness, all those things. That being said, I have some exercises that might help you out and we'll progress with them. Like our other ones that we've done with the ankle and the hamstring. If you haven't seen those, I'll put the hamstring one right here. You can do these progressively, and we like to do them with mobility first. Then we like to do a little bit of strength and then some dynamic stuff. Again, these are not all the exercises that you could do. Some exercises might be easier and some might be harder. This is not like a pure progression, but these are the ones I like to see when I have someone that comes to me that has this type of injury, and this is how we progress them. So the first one I like to see is a basic hip pull. So if someone comes in with an injury, I'm gonna put them in this roughly 90-90 position. It might be a little bit sharper in the front leg. I'm gonna have them tuck their tailbone so it's underneath them, and I'm just gonna see if they can move forward, keeping this heel down without any pain. And then we'll change angles a little bit. We can go a little bit wider. You can go laterally. You can do a bunch of different directions. You can even go a little bit internally. So I like to see if they're able to do that, or if they have pain if we get to an end range. If we do get pain at an end range, we're just gonna stop a little bit before that end range and hold, and then back off and hold and pulse forward. So that would be kind of the first thing I do as that initial test. As they get better, you can add a little bit of traction, so it's kind of pulling on that hip. So what I would do is I'd step into the band on the affected side. I get it up high, just be careful of everything. I'm gonna tuck my tailbone, get a little bit of tension to start, and I'm trying to keep that tailbone tucked and move forward and pull back. And it's gonna get a little bit of traction or distraction in that hip, which could free up some type of injury. So usually when you injure something, the joint and the muscles will both be stiff. So if we can open it up and loosen up at the junction, that could help out. Next one we're gonna do is a hip circle. So I wanna be in a all fours position. I wanna tuck my tailbone, and then I'm just gonna make a circle. So let's say this is the affected leg. I'm gonna extend back, and when I extend, I don't lose my low back. So this extension, I'm stretching the hip flexor, then I'm rotating, stretching the hip joint, and then sweeping through, pulling through the hip flexor and around. So I can start with a small circle, rotate, sweep through, and then I want to get bigger as I go along. And then eventually I want to go the other way. I want to go forward, out, rotate, and then sweep through again. So that's a good mobility preemptively to help your hip, but it's also a good therapy one. Again, you can see what bothers it. If you rotate or abduct the leg, does that bother it? If you extend, does that bother it? If you pull it forward, does that bother it? So you want to find the little spots that bother it and then kind of play within that area to help get them to be better. The other one I like is a rock back. So we'll have one foot flat. Say this is the affected side. I'm going to tuck my tailbone, and I'm gonna rock back until I feel a little stretch. Now, it might be a little bit more in the medial aspect of the leg, but all those connect into that junction, and now I'm gonna rock forward. So my goal is to kind of open up that hip area. I can also add a little bit of rotation of the joint itself, the hip. So when I rock back, I'm gonna open up, forward, rock back, open up and forward, and just try to loosen up that area as well. Lastly, a mountain climber. Now we're not gonna do the ballistic one. We're gonna do a mobilization version of it. So I'm gonna take a step. I'll be in a push-up position. I'm gonna take a step with my right leg, This leg, I feel a nice stretch. And then what I can do is I can drop down a little bit, like doing these mini push-ups, and shift around, and then come back up. Mini push-up, shift, mini push-up, shift. And then I want to see again, is this affected? Can I get lower? Does it help it out? Does it feel good after? So those are some of the mobility ones I would do. You know, progressive, obviously, I'd start with that hip pulse, and then I would bring it up to these more advanced ones as we go along and see which ones help out. Next, we'll get into the strength portion of the hip flexor series. I like to start off with a hip bridge. Hip bridge is great. We did it in the hamstring one as well, but it's also great for hip flexor. So the single leg version especially, but let's start with the two. So I'll flat my hips and I'll bridge up. See if there's any pain, see if they can get full extension, see if they're stable. That's usually pretty good. So the second one we can do is we can do a single leg, bridge up, and see if they're stable, and see if they can decelerate and control down. So we want full hip extension, so we don't want to, I'll lower my legs so you can see, I don't want to stop here. I want to see if I can really extend and get to that end range and down. Another way you can do it is also opening up the hip with a figure 4 and see if you can hip bridge and then control down as well. So those versions are great to open up that area and also check for stability. We want to make sure that we can decelerate as well, go down slowly and without any disruption of the hips. Next, we're going to do some mini band work. So these are great. They're not that expensive, and they can do a lot of good to help build up strength, especially in those smaller muscles that are neglected. One of them I like is a straight leg raise. So I'm going to be here. I'm going to lock down. I'm going to tighten my outer hip, and I'm going to raise up. Now, what you might think is I'm training this outside. Yes, I am, but deceleration-wise, I'm decelerating and strengthening all those internal or medial muscles that connect into the hip flexor. I want to see how high I can get and see if they're comparable on both sides, and also to see if I can not drop down. So I want to make sure I can come up and then smooth on the way down. So that's a great one for that. Another one I like with the mini band is putting it around both toes. I'm going to lie on my back. I'm going to flatten my low back. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend one leg while I pull firmly with the other one to keep that leg still. I'm going to hold for a few seconds and then back, reset, pull, hold, and then back. So what I'm doing is I'm isometrically strengthening at the flexion portion, and I'm extending at the hip on the other side to see if there's any movement, see if there's any pain, see if there's any weakness. Do not disregard this exercise. It looks easy, but it's not. Next one I have my kids do, especially once we start going dynamic again, is, and I usually have them hold something else, but I'll just do this for the video. I'll have them hold something in front. But hip drive. So I have this band resistance, and I'll go slow, but what I'm going to have them do is drive up with the leg. So obviously this one steps down on one side, and I'm driving up. I'm not crunching down as I drive up. I'm trying to drive from that hip flexor to see, one, if there's good range of motion, see if there's good strength, and see if there's good speed. And if they can pass all that and they're pretty even, then they can move on to the dynamic stuff, which we'll do later on. But we still have a few more strength ones to do. Now, obviously, you want to be able to do squats, deadlifts, lunges, all those things. I'm going to do specific ones for the hip flexors. I like to see people do to build up the strength if they had an injury, and also preemptively prevent that if we can. Split squats are a good way. You can use a bench or a box. I'll just use the box here. So a split squat is when we take one foot and put it up on top. You can be flat or toe up. I'll go flat. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop with control, get a stretch in that rear leg. So I want to make sure I'm feeling it here and then drive up. So I'm controlling down, driving up. So I like to see one, good range of motion, control within that range of motion, and then good dynamic-ish speed coming up. So a nice, clean, smooth movement. If any of those do not pass, then we have to kind of regulate a little bit. So let's say I'm having trouble at the bottom position, like in transition or coming up. What I would do is isometric holds. So let's say, I'll exaggerate, I'm going to drop down and I come up, I'm wobbly or I got pain. So what I want to do is get to that end range, hold, let's say a 3 with tension, 1, 2, 3, and then smoothly come up. So by teaching that muscle to hold isometrically, we're strengthening it up, we're lengthening the tissue a little bit, and we're also allowing it to get stronger in that position to help us achieve what we want to do. So again, bench split squats are great. You can also do it on the TRX as well if you have one of those with the legs suspended. The bench gives it a little more support, but it's up to you. Next, we're gonna do step-ups. Now, step-ups are pretty standard, but I want you to think about a couple things in the step-ups, and I'll give you an option with one too. One is hip flexor, so this hip is bent, and I wanna extend out, so I wanna drive up all the way. I wanna see if somebody can stand up all the way on one leg, and then control down. With a weak hip flexor, they'll drop down, they'll cave inward, a leg will kick behind them for counterbalance, so we wanna make sure we can drive up and then control down. When they're good at that, now we'll add the hip flexor. Let's say this hip flexor is weak. I'm gonna drive up and hold, and then back down. Drive up, hold with stability, and then down. And of course, you can add dumbbells with this. Now, a slightly more advanced one is to use weights to actually weight the hip flexor coming up. So we're gonna do this, but we're gonna put a weight on our toe. I recommend holding on. And kettlebells are nice because they have good handles, and depending on your shoe, you can do these barefoot too. I'm gonna drive straight up, hold, and then down. I don't wanna use a lot of leverage, I don't wanna lean back, and I wanna pick the weight that's good for me to do this. You do not need a lot of weight. 10, 15 pounds is fine. Hold and down. If you get good, you can let go. Challenges the balanced leg as well. But those are good ones. I feel them already. All right, we got to get into dynamic stuff now. And you can incorporate this while you're doing strength. You just have to be progressive with it. Dynamic, obviously, you don't have time to really slow down or isometrically hold. You just got to go. And that's when the muscles sometimes act up, is when we do something dynamic. It's like, oh, pulled, right? We talked about the basketball joke earlier, but this is, does happen a lot. Now, one I like to do initially is a low box on-off hop. So this is a low box, it's 6 inches. And it's not a ton of hip flexor. I'm not gonna be jumping too high, but I'm getting rebounding. So I am hip flexoring by pulling my feet up, and then down, up and down. Initially, you can start slow, but we wanna start moving to get that rebounding. So I'm springy up and down. What you can also do is jump rope. Now, jump rope will mimic that on-off hop, getting that plyometric rebounding effect. So obviously everybody knows jump rope 2 foot, but I also want people to be able to do 1 foot and then alternating with pulling their knees up eventually. So that will help mimic high stepping, all that stuff that the hip flexor really gets involved. So start with a 2 foot, start with a single, and then you can get to really good alternating like you're doing football, high chops and all those things. A box jump will be my next progression for people. Now, obviously, we're using our hips to jump up. We're pulling up and landing on the higher box and then stepping down. Now, we're using that power to get high. We have to pull our legs up. So you can be progressive with that. So that would be kind of the next phase. If everybody's good, we'll have them do a couple of those, step down. We'll get them a reasonably good sized box to see if they can jump up to it. I like a box that's, you're not landing way up here. You can land in a quarter squat position, just enough to pull the legs up. So that would be good, no pain. Then we can move on to something else. So what would we do after you're successful with the box jump is a tuck jump. Tuck jump looks easier than a box jump, but the difference is we're gonna get a rebounding effect and string reps together. So I'll go kind of slow, but we're gonna hop up, hop up, hop up, and we wanna repeat that 10, 12 times. Now what that does is it tests endurance of the hip flexor. This not so much, it tests power, but you're resting right away. This one, that repetitive plyometric effect, gets to see if the hip flexor can repeatedly do those things. Imagine a game, 90-minute soccer game or 12-minute quarters for basketball. Are you good in the final parts of the game, or does your hip flexor run out of juice, run out of strength, run out of help, and then it just kind of gives out on you? So you have to build up the endurance with those dynamic motions as well. So building up those with the box jump and the tuck jumps are great. Those bands that we did earlier are another way to strengthen it up. When you get really good at those, the last one I would do is a split squat jump. So we'll get back to that split squat position. I would drop down and then pull my front leg up with that hip flexor. So I'm going to drop down. So I'm trying to explode up and pull that leg up. So that would really test the endurance of that single leg. The tuck jump is both at the same time. One can take over a little bit. This one has no help. I have to use that leg. So thanks for watching the video. I hope you liked it. I hope it helped you out. Put it down in the comments below if you have any questions or if you have ideas for future videos to help you out. Please like and subscribe. I try to put a new video out every week to help you. Thanks again. Keep those hip flexors in check and go win your church basketball league.